Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people.
That used to be me. And here I am with the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. Today we're having Herm on. And you might know him as Thumbs Out on Instagram, or at least the movement that he made. I am just overly excited about these episodes or these guests these days, and I think that it's easy to think that you are having a podcast, you're bringing a lot of value to the listeners, and that it kind of, that obviously or hopefully this podcast helps you as a listener to become a better runner, or it's a good companion on your runs. One thing that is maybe underestimated is how much it means to a podcast host like me. It means so much to me to have this podcast. I'm meeting such nice and good people. I'm learning so much from them, and it's so inspiring. And I'm sure that this is the reason why I've had so much more fun running lately, and why running is just really improved my life so much. And lately I've felt a spark that has been very different than previously. So just really, really excited about the Marathon Podcast. But this conversation, it's not, I don't think I should say that this is the most important one, but it's definitely one of them, because we can learn so much from Herm. And I think that a word that was used a lot in this conversation was the word relatable. And Herm is very relatable to me. I feel like there are so many of the things that he's talking about on his profile that I can relate to, and that it really hits me hard. So I've really, really had a lot of fun with Herm in this one, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Before we jump into the conversation, instead of having an ad at this point, I just would really like for you to follow the podcast, share it with a friend, and just help me grow this into something that is bigger than what it is today, and help us grow this community that running is. And with that, I would love for you to just sit back or move your feet, whatever you are doing while you're listening to this podcast. Here is my conversation with Herm. Hello, Herm. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
How's it going? Happy Thursday. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, happy Thursday. Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. Like I just told you before we hit record here, you're one of the runners on Instagram that I've been following for the longest, I think. And I just I just kind of want to start like with hyping you up a little bit, because like just told you that I think you have such an important voice, and like the way you are creating this, I would say, like very unique community, and the way you are on your platform, on your Instagram. I just really appreciate that, because it gives, at least for me, it gives me a very different perspective on running. Like being a very competitive runner myself, kind of I tend to get caught up in all of these results and all the times, and then you show up and you kind of like, I don't know, you show me that like what running is actually about. So just wanted to say that before we start. Just a little thank you there to start, actually.
No, thank you. I mean, it's always good to pump the tires of your guest before you get going a little bit, hype them up. It makes for a better conversation. But no, I seriously appreciate that. And I think that kind of what you said there is so important to kind of how I approach running is like the numbers
Mm,
are really rad and cool. And like I do have goals from time to time, despite, the lenience and laid back nature of my kind of
mhm.
content and message. But you're right, man. I mean, it's very, very rare that I'm ever thinking through, times and uh holding myself to a certain standard. Now, I think that does stem from like a place where every other sport I've ever played in my entire life, I did. I held myself to a high
Yeah.
standard and I would have been
Hmm.
ultra competitive with it. But I sucked at running. I was so bad that it was like, what do I chase here? Like, I'm not like ever gonna be with the fast guys and gals. So like, I might as well just enjoy it. So I think that is the beauty of the sport, right? Like I came into this thing ground level, maybe even below ground level. So I really don't have the that kind of built into me to chase something that I know is just not attainable right now.
No, but I think that is like I said, what's really cool about it, and I think that I've been trying to look at a lot of um, people on whether it's YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. It's like I think a lot of us were asking ourselves the question like, what is it about this person that makes him or her like just really stand out and build such a following? And I think that the one thing that everyone will have in common is the relatable part, right? And I think that's what you've been
Mhm.
so good at, of like whether it's the way you're communicating your content, like it's so relatable. And I think it's relatable for everyone, like whether you are a super fast marathoner or a super fast runner or you are a slower runner. I think that you will be able to relate to you and your content. And I just think that in a world where everything seems so perfect on social media, that is such an important thing to kind of share with other people, right?
Oh my God, without a doubt. What's so funny, and this is something I've really only thought about for the last week or so, is that I think that running, especially in the content space, has just become a vehicle for my ultimate message, which is really just like self-confidence, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that running is such a great outlet to working on yourself. Still go to
Mm-hmm.
therapy, of course, talk to people. But like the
Yeah.
amount of growth that you can do as a person just because you take some fast steps down the road, maybe you take your shirt off, maybe you make a few new friends. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable thing to do that I'm like, okay, yeah, so like running's dope and everything. But like what I am so stoked on is that like people are messaging me that they're like taking off their shirt for the first time and they feel
Yeah.
like more freedom in their life and they feel a little bit rebellious maybe even. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what gets me stoked because that's how you
Mm-hmm.
create like people's like bettering their lives. And if I'm helping you better your
Yeah.
life at all, dude, I mean, it could just be one person. That's what it's about. So I'm glad that that's coming through because sometimes
Oh
I
yeah.
do feel preachy and
Mm.
I never want people to feel like I'm talking at them. Like you got it, dude. Like I think you should, but like if you don't, hey man, enjoy the ride for what it is.
Honestly, like I don't know, my impression or perception of your content is much more like, this is what I've learned, this is what helps me, I'm gonna throw this out here. If it helps you, great. And I think that it does help a lot of people. So mission accomplished.
Hell yeah, because I'm not a coach either.
Yeah.
I'm not a trained
Yeah.
professional at this stuff. So like I'm not gonna tell you this is gonna work or this isn't gonna work. Trust me, I got plenty of people in my DMs asking me how I don't get hurt. Dude, I don't even know.
Mm.
Like I
No.
I I just run. If that's what the
Yeah.
trick is, then just run. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And there's one thing that I am super excited to dive into, and that is Suns Out, Thumbs Out. But before we do, uh, why don't you present yourself? Like, um, who's Herb?
Oh, I am just a big dude who runs a lot. That's in my bio now, but outside of that, man, I'm just like a normal guy who really loves to hang out with people, talk about music, um, walk my dog and ride my skateboard to get coffee every morning. I live such a simple lifestyle outside of the running thing that like I think it really makes the running the most exciting part of my life, which is why it's the only
Hmm.
thing that I film about. Because outside
Yeah.
of that, I think it's so unclustered and unchaotic, and I need it to be that way because I get so like, worked up in my own head about one thing or another that if like I have too much going on, then I would stop making videos and I would stop running and I
Yeah.
would become my unhealthy self again. So, yeah, outside of that, I love my girlfriend, I love my dog, and I love, just living life each day, getting to listen to good music and watching the Red Sox, even though they break my heart. So it's like those are the things that kind of spin my world around. And anything else that comes into it's just, a cherry on top.
That's great. I love that presentation. That's perfect. It's interesting because I think that what you mentioned about like running is the only thing you film about it. Like, and I had Rob Dalto on the pod a couple of weeks
Mm,
ago,
yeah.
and and he told me during the pod that, oh yeah, and I have a full-time job working in tech, and I was like, what? And I didn't know
Rob
anything
doesn't just
about
have
that,
a
obviously.
full-time job. Yeah, Rob is like
He's got every.
he's like a president or something at his company.
Yeah.
Like, he's
Yeah,
insane.
exactly. Yeah. That's what I got from the conversation too. And he's very modest about it. So it was like I
Mhm.
have a job in tech and I like where I'm at, right? And I was like, oh, you're probably higher up than you're telling me right now. But it's more like, it's interesting because when we do follow people and like me too, I'm now just posting about running, it could seem like you're not doing anything else, right? But what
Oh,
what is it that you
1000%.
do? What is it that you do when you don't run? You were saying walking your dog and stuff. Like, I guess you're not running 24/7. So, like, what does a normal day look like for you?
Oh, I mean, I have a job too. Although
Yeah.
I'm like actively not doing it, like this is gonna sound really silly, but like I don't love my job. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's days where it's definitely takes the back burner, but I'm around my laptop all day. I work
Mm-hmm.
in online gambling, which is like a very, very
Oh,
split subject. I had a big ethical dilemma when I first started, and then I realized very quickly that I can actually help a lot of people with what I do. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's cool what I get to do in that space. I definitely don't talk about it ever online because it's such a like divided subject. Like people
Yeah.
hate online
Yeah.
gambling, and I can see why. People love online gambling. I
Mm-hmm.
can also see why.
Yeah.
And I don't find
Yeah.
it interesting. I
No.
don't gamble myself because of my like based on what I've seen in my
Yeah.
job, but like
Yeah.
I can understand both sides of that argument, and it's so just you know, not a cool part of my life whatsoever that it's like I'll do that from, 9 to 5, but then I'll take my lunch
Yeah.
break and I'll go film reels, or I'll take a
Yeah.
meeting time and I'll go make a silly, video with Laura Green in the park like we did last week. So
I saw that
I
one.
do that during the day, and then I run at night. I'm not a morning person whatsoever. I wake up at like if I work at 9, I wake up at 8:54. So
Yeah.
there's nothing relatable there. Like I'm not gonna make the video where I'm up at 4:45, going for a run, drinking my smoothie in the shower before I make it to the office. That doesn't happen. Like
No.
there's nothing sexy about this stuff, man. It's so just like, work, walk the dog, make some videos in
Mm-hmm.
between, go to run club after work, come home, eat my dinner, and go to sleep and try to do it again tomorrow. I mean, I guess that's kind of like the lifestyle that America is ingrained into us as like people, but it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you, like, when I asked you if you did something else and you said that you didn't really love your job, because my next question was actually like, if you were able to just go 100% running content, or like that would, like, could that be your full-time job? Is that something you would have liked more, and is that
Yeah,
something that you want to do in the future?
yeah, if you got health insurance and a 401k in the States from making content full time, I would be all over it. I think that like this is an important part of the conversation. This dude from the Boston Globe kind of outed it in an article one day. Like I make more money doing the content thing than I do at my actual job. But like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I don't get any benefits from,
No. No.
making videos online and the system we're in. And also right now, is like a perfect example of it. And it's like I love getting paid every other week from my normal job. There's
Hmm.
something about that
Yeah.
stability that's very comforting,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
when, you know, you charge for a brand deal that's like they call it like net 30. So like you submit your whatever they call it to pay, and
Hmm.
the brand or company or agency, whoever, has 30 days to pay it. Well, I've got 4 brands right now that are over 45 days past due that owe me
Yeah.
money. And it's like, I don't like, I wouldn't want to just be relying on like, oh, whenever a brand
No.
feels like paying me, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's a prime example of why I'll probably
Yeah.
always keep some kind of stable job. I mean, I've even
Yeah.
toyed with the idea of making it like a smaller gig. Like I don't have to be like I have a pretty significant role in my company that I'm at. So like I've toyed with like going and working at a running shoe store. Like that'd be rad. I would love to just talk about
Yeah.
running all day. But like
Yeah.
then there's like the expectation of going into a place because I work fully remote. So like
Yeah.
then I would
Yeah.
have to go somewhere. That sounds horrible too. And then also, what
Hmm.
company is gonna give me the unlimited PTO that I have right now because I travel like every weekend and
Yeah.
I'm always on the run. So I'm in a good setup right now, but it's like, you know, there are days where I'm just sitting at my desk talking to players or whatever I'm doing, and I'm just like, dude, I could just be making so many videos about running right now and really amplifying this space, maybe starting even my own podcast or something. So it's like
Hmm.
there's days where it crosses my mind, and then my girlfriend
Yeah.
gets home and puts me back to reality. She's like, "Yeah, how's did you go to the doctor today?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally see what you mean. And I feel like, especially in the segment where you are, I guess, like in between where so you're probably somewhere where you're making more money on your running content than like someone who just started out with a very small following, but then you're also maybe
Mhm.
not where, those with millions of followers where it doesn't matter if the sponsor is 45 days late because the other ones were like they have so much from the previous months, or or the sponsors or the brands, they they don't risk not paying on time, right? Like you
Yep.
have those things too that are, but I definitely see. I would assume like that you are heading into that, like that your platforms will head into that direction eventually, because I think that kind of like back to what I said, that your voice is so important. I think that more brands also with running, where running is going, like that you see with the marathons, like the ballot for the London Marathon was today. They sent out a lot of rejection emails, right? Like I got one myself because there were 1.1 million people
Yeah.
signing up for the marathon. The running is becoming so popular. And obviously, most of those people are not runners who are running like a 2:10 marathon. It's just people who are, like you said, like found something in running or having fun with running. And um, I just like realized that we need to have those voices that are motivating us to get out of bed. And I think that, again, back to what you said about you're not the person who's up at 4:30. I mean, we need that. Like, because sometimes I watch content and I see people being up at 5 or 4:30 in the morning running, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have been too. And I'm out there like at 9 or 10, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
no, you know what? It doesn't really matter. And that's what I loved. You had a reel about like the biggest running propaganda these days is the morning runner or something. And you're like, I
Yeah.
hate it.
It's never gonna be me. And like I
No.
think that's part of like that self-awareness aspect. Like if you recognize pretty early on that you are not this, then you don't ever have to fake trying to be that or like
No.
trying to be like I'll never fake being an elite runner because like I can't even fathom like what that lifestyle would look like. I'm
Hmm.
never gonna be able to put up those times or anything like that. And I do really appreciate you saying that though, because like right now in particular, I'm feeling this very big lull in creativity where I'm like, what do I even talk about right now, man? Like it's getting hot out. I feel like, there's so many interesting things I could be talking about, but like have I talked about them too much in the past? And so yeah, I know that means a lot. And you know what the beautiful thing about getting bigger, and you kind of hinted at this, is that like more people come to you, and like I theoretically could make a lot of money this year, but I
Hmm.
never got into this to make money. I
Yeah.
never got into this to even have this platform. I made this page on TikTok just to like make some friends in Boston. So
Hmm.
when the brand deals started coming around for this year, I have a manager and I sat down with her at the beginning of the year and I said, "Hey, there's this one deal that I really want to make happen." And we did. It's with Adidas. I have a year-long partnership with Adidas,
Hmm.
which is great. But that allows me, and that's like plenty of money. Like I'm cool with that. I can chill with that.
Yeah.
And then I can be so selective the rest of the year so that I don't turn into someone who might have more followers and but just posts ads,
Yeah.
every 3 days. I mean, my ads have been very far and few between this year, which feels really
Mm.
great in terms of like I don't need the, extra money here and there just to like plug, some body soap like I was doing last year because it was the first
Mhm.
time I ever got pitched body soap,
Yeah.
so I think that that's such an important part of it is kind of just remembering like why did I even get into this? Like I've I've done big dude
Yeah.
approved about Adidas my whole life. My whole span online. So like I've always been a huge Adidas
Mm.
fan. The SL is literally my favorite shoe of all time. And their clothes fit
Yeah.
me really well and they fit the larger runner like myself. So there's a no doubter to make that partnership come to life. But everything else, man, it's like if I'm not using it every single day or pretty frequently,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pass because I'm back to making videos that I really love and make me happy and make me feel like I'm making, an impact again. So that I think that thank you for bringing that back to light for me.
I think that what you're saying here is also very important for us, like your followers to know. And because I've been thinking about this myself lately. I have a couple of like brand deals where it's just like affiliated links, and I just
Mhm.
know that sometimes you can come off as like, oh, here's a chance for me to make money, right? And it's like, do you I think that the most common question or like follow up will be, well, are you using it yourself? Do you believe in this product, right? And a lot of people will just make the
Mhm.
assumption that this is to make money. But something that I promised myself is that I'm never gonna advertise a product that I don't use myself or that I don't believe in. But it's also hard to like communicate that, because obviously that is also the best way to communicate to actually advertise for the product. But I think that
Yeah.
um, again, like with Adidas, because that was gonna be one of my questions about your brand deal with them, because I saw
Mhm.
during the Boston Marathon weekend, you had this reel where you were going into a store and you were kind of like, I think you were going through like how to find running shoes or something like that,
Oh yeah,
right?
that
And
was with Adidas
uh,
and Marathon Sports. Yep.
yeah, and I like that one because it was more, Adidas just became like a little part of that, whilst you were more talking about running shoes in general. And then Adidas obviously was the brand that you were running with. Uh, but how for you then when you got that deal, and I guess like you said, you've been a fan of Adidas for a very long time. W- Personally, what did that mean for you, like to have such a big brand on your team?
Oh, I mean, it means the world to me. That's something I don't think it's even hit me yet how big of a deal that is. And there's gonna be something coming out. I can't really speak to it, but there's something that's gonna be coming out eventually. And that's gonna be like my moment where I'm like, holy shoot, this is pretty rad. But having not just the support of Adidas, but having them come to me, um,
Hmm.
from the jump was very, very meaningful. And you know, I think that it's something that it's like you tell, 13-year-old you, you're gonna be working with these big brands one day. You're gonna get these opportunities, pinch me. And then it's like
Hmm.
crazy that sometimes you feel like so greedy about them. You're like, I can't believe the brand. And then you're like, holy
Yeah.
shit, I'm working with like this huge brand. Like, and
Yeah.
they're taking care of me, they're paying me fairly, and like, I'm 13-year-old you would be stoked. Remember that,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're getting this opportunity to put yourself in their clothing and then also tell your story or your message. Um, so
Mhm.
that's been super rad. The brand thing altogether, though, I would say is such an interesting subject, and I would even love to hear more about what you're kind of going through with the affiliate link stuff. It's just like from getting your first brand deal all the way up through
Mhm.
getting many offers to denying some offers to redlining
Yeah.
contracts is such a ugly part of this whole thing that it's like, because it's so tough. How do you make the right decision when it's such a new thing to be doing in
Yeah.
both your life and in the industry as a whole? So
Mhm.
it's like, how do I ensure that I'm being true to myself and I'm making the right decision for me? So sure, let's use Dr. Squatch because they were great. I used their soap forever. And then they message me
Mhm.
and I get to do an ad for them. And I'm like, awesome. But then that involves me making a video of myself like in the shower. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to make videos of myself in the shower, even though it's a product that I used. And so
Yeah.
I stood true to the value of like, yes, I use this product every day, but then it was like, okay, but this is a video I don't really ever need to do again. Like, great product.
Mhm.
I'll continue to even
Yeah.
use it, but took me out of my comfort zone a little bit for an ad,
Yeah.
and I don't really feel like doing that again. It's such an interesting place to be, and then just figuring it all out from there. Without my manager, I would be just in shambles because I know nothing about anything. And there's so many little things that go into a contract. I mean, my first ever contract I signed before I had a manager, I gave them the content forever. REI is videos and pictures of me that they can put on their website in 2097, and
Oh
I
wow.
can't say
Yeah.
anything about it. And I got a quick $500, which at the time felt like all the world money in the world to me. But now that I look back on it, wasn't worth giving pictures and videos forever.
But I think this is also something that the brands, and I'm not criticizing them for this, but they are definitely taking advantage of the smaller creators because they know exactly like what you're saying here. They know that as soon as they reach out, like if Adidas reached out to me today, right?
Mhm.
I would probably be just so stoked. So if they said, "We'll give you $100 and a pair of new shoes," and I'm like, "Sure, I'm gonna make a lot of content for you guys." I
Yeah.
had a similar experience with client work. I'm a filmmaker and I was making a music video for Sony Music, like very early on in my career. So like was probably my second or third client ever. And obviously Sony
Wow.
Music, you're like, oh my god, this is Sony Music. This is cool.
Mhm.
They paid me $200 for probably like 150 hours of work.
Oh my
So
god.
and back then I was like stoked about it, and honestly, like I did take advantage of it the other way too. I was like, I'm gonna put that logo on my website, and I think I might
Mhm.
still have that logo on my website just because that kind of gave me more in negotiations with other clients. But I still think that they knew that I was fairly fresh. They knew that I would probably be just happy with client work, and then they took advantage of that, and then they got a pretty decent music video without having to spend like $200 for Sony Music is like nothing, right? Um,
Right.
so I think that that is definitely like a bit of a difficult, tricky situation for all of us. But I think that like a little part of this is what you were saying in the beginning, where you have your job, right? You have your
Mhm.
job that is kind of like your safety, where you have your income, your health insurance, so you don't rely on this sponsor that is coming in. If that was like your main source of income and you didn't have any brand deals, it would probably be much harder to say no. Then you would go more out of your comfort zone. Like you would maybe you would even, like cross some lines that you were not didn't feel good about. Like at least for me lately, it's been also a little bit about the brands in terms of like, are my values the same as the brand? Like, do
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
such a
like,
big part of it now.
yeah, and then I'm like, if the answer is no, like I'm gonna do some research, like where where does this money go? Like
Yeah.
what are they working on when it doesn't come to this exact product? And so I think those things are also, at least I'm very happy, but also proud to say that I'm I'm looking into those things, and that I'm saying no to those things that are not aligned with my values, because that is very important to me. And I also want, like, whether it's you as a guest on this podcast or the listeners on this podcast or any of the content that I'm making, I want them to know that I have a very honest voice, right? And so I loved, actually, Johannes Mochman, who's like sponsored by Adidas too, and he was on a podcast, and I heard him talking about the Adidas, was it the Adidas 12 or 11, where the Boston 11 or 12,
Boston
where
12.
he was like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was talking about one of them where it was like, no, maybe it was 11, where he didn't like it, where most people didn't like one of the models. And he was just very clear on that. I loved 10, I loved 12, but I did not like 11. And as soon as he said that, I knew that I could trust him, because I knew that, okay, you're being honest about this product. So like, then I know that 12 is probably good, you know? And so
You know,
I love, yeah, sorry.
no, you keep going.
No, I just love that honesty, because it makes me believe it more or trust it more.
No, 1,000%. And I think that is one of the best thing that's come out of my Adidas partnership is that, yes, you'll see branded ads for me. And yes, I mean, I genuinely be wearing the SL, whether they were, we were working together or
Hmm.
not. And they've taken such great care of me. But at the same time, they've always said, anytime you're on a podcast, anytime you're making a video, anytime you're, just talking about our products, tell people how you feel. I can be
Yeah.
very open about the fact that I prefer the Audios Pro 3 to the new Audios Pro 4. I don't like the
Yeah.
new form of Light Strike Pro. It doesn't work for me. It's too soft.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why someone who runs a 6-minute mile would really, really love that shoe, but that's not me and it doesn't work for me. So it's similar with I like the Boston 12 more than I like the Boston 13. That's just a me
Mm-hmm.
thing. I'm a bigger dude who
Yep.
runs a little bit slower than what that new formulation of the foam is meant for. And they've always been like, dude, yeah, we hear you. Like, and
Yeah.
that's why I have a stockpile of Evo SLs upstairs, because I am afraid they're gonna put that new Late Strike Pro in the Evo SL2 whenever that comes out. So
Yeah.
it's like I can be completely open and honest about that stuff, and genuinely from the bottom of my heart, from the moment they gave me my first Evo SL in Berlin, been my favorite shoe. I've worn it for, like, when I was 50-mile ultra training and I would do 40-mile weekends. I was wearing it for
Mm-hmm.
all 40 of those miles because it was the only shoe that would not give me blisters and felt great the whole way through. So, having that ability to be honest and be completely transparent about the things that I do and don't like, and they've actually
Mm-hmm.
taken my feedback from it, that means
Yeah.
the world to me, man, because if I was working with a brand and they, first of all, I had to just say nice things, and second of all, they took 0% of the feedback that I give them, well, that would be a bummer because I feel like I've got enough, experience now, and I get enough feedback from people that comment on my videos and interact with me to tell them, like, this shoe's not working." Like,
No.
you guys
Yeah.
really need, you probably won't be for the next version because that's already in the making, but like 2 or 3
Yeah.
versions down the line, you really need to fix this issue. And this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're getting from like the general public, because the pros that tested it might have loved it. Of
Yeah.
course, they're fast and it feels great. But these average runners out here running 8-minute to 12-minute miles, we gotta, make a couple little adjustments.
Yeah. I love that. And I love to hear that a brand like Adidas is actually doing these things, because I think it's so important. And I think that, uh, back to what we were talking about before, where like being relatable, and after all, like, yes, Adidas, they're making shoes for the pros, and it's important that the shoes are fast and that people can perform in them. But after all, most people are not, right? Like, most people are not those pro athletes. And I guess, like, this is a kind of a bad transition into the sun's out, bums thumbs out, because, or you can actually explain this much better than I can. I just love it. I'm just gonna say I love it, and then you can explain the concept of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a bad transition at all, 'cause, I think it's similar with, like, branding, right? I think that Suns Out's almost become like a brand at this thing, I mean, at this point,
Mm-hmm.
with how many people, use the phrase. It all started because I used to just say run shirtless, like run without a shirt on, and then I
Mm-hmm.
would just get flooded in the comments with women who were just like, "Look at this misogynistic asshole. He hates women. He wants us to run with our boobs out and stuff like that." And I'm just like, that is just the furthest thing from what I'm saying here. And then I
Oh
realized
wow.
very quickly that whether you're wearing a sports bra or not, you have your stomach out, and tum's a funny word, and it kind of goes with
Mm-hmm.
sun. So sun's out, thumbs out. Both
Mm-hmm.
men and women can do that. And I'll still get the comments here and there like, I wish I could, but I'm a woman. And I'm like, well, you can. And hundreds of
Yeah.
women have tagged me in their posts of them running, shirtless or thumbs out or however you want to explain it. But I think there's such a beauty in it. And I think that something that I was talking to someone about it the other day, and I actually kind of had a little argument with them. Not a real argument, but like, um, it was someone who said, "I just can't watch your stories right now because they're not of you, and I don't really care about other people's posts." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting because I'm not terribly interesting. I don't know why you'd care about what I'm doing." But I think what other people are doing is looking at my stories and seeing people, whether it's one person of the 8 stories I share that day or 2 people that you feel like you relate with, whether you have
Mm-hmm.
similar hair to them, similar physique,
Mm-hmm.
similar, this, that, or the other thing. You're like, oh shit, that person's doing it. You know what? I
Mm-hmm.
can do it too. Cause maybe you don't look like me or feel like me and you can't exactly relate to me, but you see someone else who you feel for some reason you can relate to. Dude, that's
Mm-hmm.
why I share all of them. As long as I
Yeah.
see the story on that little thing on my thing, I share every single one of them because it's
Yeah.
just shown such a diverse community of people who've really rallied around the suns out thing. And it's so, so rad to see because at the end of the day, like right now, it's 95 degrees here in Boston. It's so hot. Running with a shirt doesn't feel like an option today. So if that's what's going to
Yeah.
be comfortable, I want as many people running as comfortable as they humanly can today because it's a scorcher. Stay as
Yeah.
cool as possible. Put on your sunscreen. Don't get burnt. But,
Mm-hmm.
let's all run comfy. No matter how you look, how fast you go, how slow you go, whatever it is, roll to your own little thing today.
And I think that this one is so important, and maybe even like probably much more important than you are aware of too, because like I think most people will call me like a pretty skinny dude, like pretty fit dude, but I've always had a little bit of a, confidence issue in terms of taking my shirt off. I've always been the kind of guy who wanted to take my shirt off and be like, here are my abs, like look at me. And I wanted the girls to kind of turn and be like, oh, he's fit. But I also know that
Yeah.
I'm not entirely there. I know that I'm not big or anything like that, but it's still something that I'm very conscious about. So like uh whenever I see those stories, so I'm the opposite. I love seeing those stories because I see so many different people doing it, and I'm like, it would be nice if we can get to a place, or if I could get to a place where I'm like, you know, kind of accepting me for what I am, or and I'm not saying that I don't have big issues with this, but it's enough for me to really appreciate your stories and this movement that it has actually become, because also loved during the Boston Marathon to look around. Like I was in a group where all of us we were running sub 3 marathons, but looking around, there are so many different body shapes and body types. Like
Mm-hmm.
you could never have this. Like if I took 100 people that were around me running and I placed them in a grocery store and we were all looking for milk, I would not be able to say that all of these, or I wouldn't guess that all of them did a sub 3 marathon. Some I probably would have guessed like, oh, he looks he looks fit. He will probably do like a 2:30 marathon, and it's like then it's a 2:58. And then look at this other person, and I'm like, oh, that's probably not a sub 3 marathoner at all. You know, like, and I think that is also a thing that is great about running, that you don't really need to have a certain body type. That is something that is just like, that is another of the propaganda that is not correct. and
Dude, yeah.
and I also think that in terms of that confidence, you know, like you don't need to have. I just love that you are helping people to throw that shirt off, or yeah, thumbs out, and just be confident about it, because they're, these people that are posting this, they're taking it to a new level. They're not just throwing it away, they're also posting it on their social media, which means that
Hmm.
they got pretty far, or like they came a long way just because of that. And maybe not just because of that movement, but a lot of it is because of it, I guess.
Oh, you just touched on so many important things. I'm gonna start off with the I love your we throw everyone into a shopping market and we're just looking for milk. I think there's something so beautiful about genetics and running that is like out of this world, because what I feel like is a sprint and I look like an athletic athlete, working my ass off, and then might be like my girlfriend, it's just her jog. And it's
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
funny just how those fast twitch muscles are like that. She just happens to, her muscles contract just that much faster that make it look like she's just jogging. And she
Hmm.
has a very amazing, like, six pack yoga girl. She's 6 feet tall. And it's like, yeah, that's a freaking athlete. Of course she ran a
Hmm.
3:29 in
Yeah.
Chicago last year.
Yeah.
And then, you put me next to her and I'm working my ass off and I got my beer belly. And it's just so funny, the way that, like, I can keep up with her from time to time, but what we're doing is just looks so much different.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I do love that. And you know what's so funny, and I've gotten this comment a lot, especially recently, is that guys like yourself or even gals are saying, listen, I'm not a big person. In fact, some of them are saying I'm the complete opposite. I am very, like, ultimately skinny and not
Hmm.
terribly tall, and I still feel so, like, just not ready to take off the shirt or take off the singlet. Um
Hmm.
and I think that in what our space, the running space, there's like two really bad stereotypes. It's one that, like, bigger runners are lazy, or just,
Hmm.
just because you're big, you're not going to be fast, you're not going to be a confident runner, you might not even be a good runner. And then two, it's just that every skinny person's going to be a great runner and a
Yeah.
really confident, can take care of the world, can just do it naturally because they're small, they're tiny. Of course, they're great runners and efficient runners. And it's like, man, those are both really, really strange to me. Like, why are we just
Yeah.
judging someone based on sure, if we were playing football and I looked at the skinny runner and I go, yeah, you're probably not going to make it on the offensive line. You're
Hmm.
not, you're not blocking the safety coming in here who weighs 250 pounds and running really fast. But in running, it's like, dude, this is just feet on the ground. How fast can you move your legs? Uh,
Hmm.
whether they're big or small really isn't going to affect too much of that. So that argument that it's like everyone who's skinny, of course, is going to be confident and want to rip off their shirt because they
Hmm.
look great and they want to show off for everyone. That's insane to me, because I'm like, everybody has insecurities, dude. I'm insecure
Yeah.
about the way my hair flows out of my hat from time to time. It's it doesn't matter what you look like, and that's
Yeah.
everybody, even the most perfect of runners. I'm sure Eliud Kipchoge has days where he's like, I feel insecure about the way my arms look today, or I
Hmm.
don't like the way that this hat fits. There's No
Yeah.
matter where you're at in the running world, it's such a vulnerable sport that you're going to feel insecurities. um, so I think that was very eye-opening to me too, because, um, similar to weight loss, I didn't realize how hard it was for many runners to put on weight. So for
Yeah.
runners to eat all day long and not get the credit because they're already what is stereotypically good breaks my heart. Like I met a guy, he was telling me when I was out at the it was out in LA, and he was like, "Dude, like I am a very insecure guy and I'm trying to gain weight so badly." The guy's drinking, chocolate milk with every meal. He's eating an extra peanut butter and jelly after every meal. He's taking in protein. And he's like, "I just cannot gain weight and I want to be bigger so badly." And I'm like, "Well, and first I'm like, why the hell would you want to be bigger? Like I'm trying to look like you." And it's a sign that it's like we're all just kind of seeking what we don't have at the moment. The grass isn't
Yeah.
always greener on the other side, but we have to appreciate what someone else is going through. So whether it is
Hmm.
losing weight, whether it is gaining weight, whether it is being a smaller person who's just not as fast as someone who's a bigger runner, and that's okay. And I think that kind of getting back to my overall message, kind of what I was saying that I've been working on this week is just like just self-awareness and being more secure within your skin is the most important part of my running journey and what I'm sharing online because at the end of the day, like we only get to live this life once, so being secure in your skin is probably a pretty rad thing to, have day in, day out, especially if running's not there for you every day.
And I think that running is a great example on how confidence can just make you obviously feel better. That's, I guess, like that's almost the definition of confidence. But just also how you will do better, like, right? Like, so lately I've been running quite a lot and I've felt really good. I've been able to increase my mileage, and like as I've done this, I've had more and more runs where I feel good and get the runner's high and just like, oh, now I love running. But the other thing that comes with that is that every time I step out the door now, I'm just excited to go for that run. I have confidence in my run. I'm like, today's going to be a good run because my last run was good. And in the same way, we could kind of like mirror that into to the confidence in like how we look and what we are. Like the more times we kind of can confirm to ourselves that it's okay. Like it's okay the way I am. Like sun's out, thumbs out, like it will also make us just feel better in general. So one thing is getting to a point where you throw your shirt off and you run and you're comfortable with that. But I think you'll also get to a point where you might sit there with fully clothed, like all your clothes on, and you're like, I'm the man, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that it's an overall thing where if you bring something into the running part of your life, you will bring it with you, obviously, into other aspects of life. And I think that we should, like, in the same way as we should accept things with ourselves, but we should also accept, like, just like you said, that people will, even though I might look at some person and be like, oh, I wish I had that body, that person might not be as happy with that. But we should, uh, I've honestly felt a little guilty sometimes watching your stories, and I'm like, I'm almost like, uh not jealous, but like I envy the people who are, getting to a place and it looks like they're comfortable, and in my head I'm like, oh, I can relate to this. But I feel like if I wrote that somewhere, I can relate to this, people would be like, hey dude, you don't know what you're talking about because y- y- yeah, this is not
You're
something
already
that you
scared.
can relate
Yeah.
to, but it's a mental thing. It's not about like, yeah, I don't know. You probably understand where I'm going with it, but it's just
I
everyone
yeah.
should be able to relate to it.
Yeah, because we all have these crazy things. Our brains are insane, man.
Hmm. Yeah.
it's insane what we can convince ourselves of. I mean, body dysmorphia is a very real thing that many, many people
Hmm.
have. And it's because we don't talk about it. And it's because we have
Hmm.
these pictures in our heads of what we in our mind should or should not look like, or how the world should or should not perceive us. It's
Yep.
truly remarkable how strong that muscle is to be like,
Hmm.
I could be living my best life right now. I could be the skinniest I've ever been. and still be like, oh, but you can be better, dude. You could,
Yeah. Yeah.
do this, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be better. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the hardest thing that comes with, a sport where we do show off our physique so much, which is a
Yeah.
very tough part of the sport too. And I would even argue a barrier to entry for some people, especially when we
Mm-hmm.
have like cool running clothes that show off, your arms
Yes.
and your legs. And if you don't feel very secure in those clothes, I wouldn't wanna start either.
Yep.
When I first started running it, I didn't wear singlets like I do now. I didn't wear half tights like I do now because those weren't the
Mm-hmm.
clothes that I thought would fit me or even should be
Mm-hmm.
worn by a guy. I was like 305
Yeah.
pounds at the time. And then I very quickly realized there's a reason that runners wear, half tights, for example, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
chafe and I can carry more
Yep.
stuff. And then singlets because they're so much lighter, it's almost like running
Mm-hmm.
shirtless. So
Yeah.
you kind of learn that the technology is there for a reason, and then it's just kind of
Yeah.
working through that barrier of like, okay, I am more comfortable, but I don't feel like I look like I'm supposed to in this. And then you work
Yeah.
through that, and then you take off the shirt, and then you kind of just, realize like, oh, nobody's physically stopped, pointed their finger at me, and laughed. So like, clearly
Mm-hmm.
not nobody's really paying attention to me. I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that I remind people of all the time until the day that somebody actually stops and is like, "You are a fat ass and you should not be doing
Mm-hmm.
this." Then I'm just fine and I'm secure in the whatever I'm wearing for the day.
Yeah. Now I hope that, like, at least me saying these things, that then it might be more clear why I'm saying that your voice is so important, because I think that, like, it's easy to think that people are making content for the people, where when you say relatable, that you're talking about the people who are exactly the same, right? Like, because relatable
Mhm.
might be like, oh yeah, I'm in the same situation, like, because I have kids and I have a job and I have a house, like, okay, then you can relate. But I can't relate to this person because I don't have kids personally, but this guy has kids, so that's why I can't relate to him. But that's not necessarily the case, right? Because it could be other
Mhm.
things that really make it me relate to you, or to some other people. And I think that's where, um I honestly think that that's one of the reasons why people will just love following you, because you will be a person that can be relatable to everyone, because you're not talking about a specific body type, a specific way of looking. That's not what it's about. It's about that confidence and feeling the lack of confidence at times, but just saying sometimes, hey, stop it. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna do me regardless, right? And that's where your message is so important, and I think it's gonna be just more and more important going forward.
Oh, that means the world to me, man. I really appreciate that because, you know, I can say it, right? I can believe it, I can feel it, and I can even get messages that are like, "You're
Hmm.
doing this," but sometimes you do just need a little bit of that, like, "I'm seeing this, and I hope you know that, like, what you're doing is
Hmm.
impactful." Um,
Yeah.
because I hope that it is. I wanna feel relatable. I want other people to also be able to relate with a guy like you, right? Because although you and
Hmm.
I have different, figures, we both chafe, we both
Hmm.
love running. We
Yeah.
both wear socks, maybe we both
Hmm.
love the same socks. And there's things that
And we
like
hate morning
although
runs.
we both hate morning runs. And so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. You and I have some different physiques. Like you run sub 3 marathons, but there's I promise more things that we relate about than things that we don't. And I think
Yeah.
that's such an important piece of this. And although, like, the, run club thing is very intimidating, I think that it has opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people to
Hmm.
realize
I
that
agree.
these things, after you kind of get ingrained in them, are all the same, and you'll almost always, whether you can keep up or not, which is, like, a real issue, but if at the end of the run, you will all be able to still have the same conversations and hang
Yeah.
out and be cool with one another. I run with this group down in Baltimore every time I visit called the Faster Bastards. I'm a full minute and a half slower than them for every mile that we run, But guess what? At the end, we all, hang out. They don't judge me for being a little bit slower than them, and I don't judge them for being faster than I am. And I think that is, well, if we can throw the paces out the door there, we're all just runners, and we all just are
Mhm.
chasing those endorphins. And you're so right. The other thing I wanted to touch on was that the way that you talked about a good run carrying into the rest of your life. This last weekend I had
Mhm.
2 good runs in a row. Monday I logged into work, and I was king
Yeah.
shit. Nobody could touch me because I just ran 2 back-to-back double-digit runs at a pace that I couldn't fathom a year ago. And you know what?
Mhm.
Nobody was touching me just because of those runs. I
Exactly.
felt like I was
Yeah.
on top of the. Then I got humbled that night and went for my easy run that felt much, much harder than the, 2-run workout that I did over the weekend.
You'll have some of those days. So you have to have those to appreciate the good ones. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I think, and I also think that for the longest time, my fiance when she travels, or previously when she traveled solo, she would like meet up with people because she was like, oh, you have to stay at hostels because then you meet people, you do this and that, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really for me. Like, and I mean, like I connect with people very well, but I need something to connect over. Or like
Mhm.
what is it that connects us? Like for you and me, it's running. Like that's the like main umbrella here, right? Like we are into running. That's why we're having this conversation. And then we might realize that we have more in common after that. But like running is the initial, like that's the in. And I was in Manchester in the UK last week, and that's the first time ever where I've just like I went into this running store and it was a fancy one with some, like they had a coffee shop in there, sold some bandit gear, and immediately I connected with the people working there, and I was invited to go for a run with a run club in the evening. And I was like, this is my new way of connecting with people. I'm gonna just head into these a bit more niche running stores or coffee shops and connect with people, or find a run club like whatever city I'm traveling to for work, and then I'm gonna connect with people there because then it's super easy. Like you said, I think that is like you said, it doesn't matter if you actually run together, but you have before and after, and you are
Mhm.
all there doing the same thing, and it like running is not necessarily a social thing because you are out there by yourself in a lot of ways, even though you're running with people. But at least you feel like you're doing something social, a social gathering, although you're running by yourself. I think that is something that is very unique about running that you you don't really get a lot of other places. So yeah, just wanted
It's the
to add
most
that to the
antisocial social thing ever. It's so
exactly. Yeah,
funny
yeah.
because you'll go. I've been to run clubs where we've run 5, 6 miles together and said maybe 10 words, but there's something about
Exactly.
running in a pack like that,
Hmm.
and then at the end giving high fives, giving hugs,
Hmm.
sharing
Hmm.
some water, donuts, whatever it is, and it's like, oh, this was fantastic. We didn't talk for 45 minutes, but that was a really, really awesome run that we just had together. It's such a
Yes.
funny like thing that's how we connect. And the interesting thing I've learned too is that so many runners, even myself, are somewhat introverted. Like I can talk to a
Yeah.
wall, but also like when I go to a group, I never make the spotlight on myself. I never want to be the
Yeah.
center of attention. And so like if nobody talks, I'm very comfortable in that situation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so if we're just going to be all introverted together, oh dude, it's great. We can just sit around, rub elbows and go for a run and then at the end
Yeah.
we'll be chatting because we all have the endorphins running through us and we've
Yeah,
broken through that
exactly.
barrier of silence.
Yeah. I honestly love how this, like what direction this conversation took pretty early on. I think it's so important what we have just talked about, and it's really um I hope a lot of people will listen to this because I think that, yeah, like I said before, they will relate to it, but I also think that it will give a lot of strength to it. But I'm obviously also curious about your, usually like 2 or 3 minutes into a conversation, I will ask the guests, what is your running story? Like your journey with running. What is that like? Now we're 56 minutes in and I'm asking you that question, which I guess means it's been a good conversation. But
It has.
you did mention that you started running a bit late, I guess, like at least
Yeah.
the way you are running now. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how it all started for you?
Yeah, man. I've only been doing this running thing for like what, 3 years now, coming up on it. So it's
Mhm.
it's all so fresh to me still. I mean, I've made leaps and bounds, and there's things that I've done that I highly wouldn't recommend. But then it's also been the thing that's changed my life. So I started running in 2022, November 6th. No, November 7th, 2022. November 6th, 2022 was the day of the New York City Marathon. And my girlfriend had run it that year, and I went to support her in her whole training block. She went to school over in London, and ran the Kew Garden half marathon like 6 months prior. I literally flew to London because I thought she was gonna die, because I was like, no human should ever run a half marathon. This is insane. You're going to probably pass away running 13 miles. So I literally
Is
got on a
that how
plane, went to
intimidated
London.
you were by the distance?
I was I was so intimidated. I genuinely thought she might pass away doing this half marathon in London. So I get on a plane, I go watch. She smashes it. Of course she does. Just a
Mhm.
crazy good athlete. And so then she, 2 weeks later finds out she gets into the New York City Marathon. And I'm like, well, surely if you didn't die after 13, you're dying at 26.2. And I'm like, well, I'll be there. And we've obviously talked through this now, but I was such an asshole to her during her training block for New York City because I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand, running so many miles, why you'd ever do that. And at the same time, I was in the worst mental state I had ever been. I was golfing every day. I was drinking every day. I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I was 300 pounds. I was as unhealthy as I could have ever been. But I go there on November 6th to watch her, and we're at mile 12, and I'm watching all these amazing runners go by, and I can't stop smiling. I can't stop crying. I'm just like watching people accomplish their dreams, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out. Not I don't like I'm like I don't know why I'm crying right now. Then we see her come around the corner, and I start crying even more and send her on her way, and I see her so excited. She starts jumping up and down, and I turned to my buddy and I'm like, dude, I'm doing this next year. I'm
Wow.
going to run the New York City Marathon. And he's my best friend. He'll always be my best friend. But he goes, dude, it's bullshit. You're not going to do that. Like, you're lying. And quite literally, she finishes up the marathon. I'm so stoked for her. We get home. I go out the next morning, buy my first pair of running shoes, and go for, my first run. Run is definitely a loose term for what I did, but that's the day that it all began. And ever since, I've focused on movement. So it was a lot of walking in the beginning, as it is
Mhm.
for everyone. A few months later, I'm able to find an amazing organization to raise money for, to run the New York City Marathon the next year, Minding Your Mind. I still work a lot with them because I think what they're doing is
Mhm.
incredibly important. And I, November 5th, 2023, tied up the laces and ran the New York City Marathon exactly 1 year later. And it was my 26th birthday. So 26 for 26, full year of training, ran the
And what year
freaking
was that?
thing. That was 2023.
24?
So that
23.
was
Okay.
23.
Yeah.
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 So now, after that, I kind of got the bug. I had just started making content, a few months before the New York City Marathon. So
Mhm.
that started taking off, and it opened up some more opportunities to run the London Marathon next. Then I did that
Mhm.
in the spring. And then after that, I ran grandmas, and I've run a few other marathons and a few ultras since then. And without going to that New York City Marathon in 2022, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have seen what you said earlier was, I wouldn't have seen all of the body types and people that
Mhm.
just look like you and
Exactly.
me, the most
Yeah.
average
Yeah.
looking and acting people in the world running these marathons, because you don't have to be an elite athlete to run a marathon. You have to just be dedicated and want to put in the work. And
Mhm.
seeing that is what was just like, I can do this. And I have an athletic background. I played college baseball. Like I just never liked the running portions of what we did, and I was
Mhm.
never good at them. So running was never something I wanted to do for pleasure. But after seeing that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna become a runner. And through, the black and blue toenails, the chafing, the uncomfortable outfits, all of the growing things that you figure out when you're first starting. We made it to that start line in New York City. It was the hardest race I've ever done till this day. And we got across the finish line, and since then I just never looked back. I think the greatest thing that came out of that day, of actually running the marathon, was that when I crossed the finish line, I told myself, dude, you can go further. There's more, to give in
Yeah.
this sport, whether it's marathoning or ultra marathoning. um I knew I wasn't a one and doneer. I knew that there
Mm.
was more to give in running and more to explore. So I think that kind of timing was really, really crucial for me, and it worked out pretty nicely. I like where we're at now.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the more inspiring stories I've heard. And what I'm really curious about is, like you said, that first day after New York Marathon. So that was 2022 then that you were
Mhm.
inspired, right? Yeah. So the day after, you go out and you said it wasn't even a run, or it didn't look like a run, whatever. It's I think this is where a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, I've had that feeling." Because I
Mhm.
was talking to someone today, and they were like, "Yeah, running is not for me." Because like whenever I go out, I hate it. And y- what, like, how did you deal with those first days, weeks? Because I'm sure that based on what you were saying in your lifestyle, running wasn't really something you enjoyed maybe from the very first run, at least like the physical aspect of it.
Oh,
Or maybe
dude,
the mental aspect even.
I didn't enjoy running for probably 3 months
Mhm.
into it. I think that's the most important thing to talk about, because I think online it does look too sexy. Like there are plenty of people who can be
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I went from couch to marathon in 3 months," and it's like that's just
Yeah.
insanity.
Yeah.
For me, I knew 2 things. I knew, one, I call myself a chronic phase person. I dive into something, I get as engulfed into it as I possibly can. I spend all the money, and then one day that I just change my mind and it's like, okay, what's the next thing? So I
Yeah.
needed one reason to not burn out from this. And two, I didn't want to get hurt. I had heard really bad horror stories online, just kind of doing research of like people who are getting, hairline fractures and overuse injuries and stuff from going from zero to really just trying to push to get to a certain distance. So in kind of creating those things together, I was like, okay, we'll do a lot of walking. It seems like, and I always had the marathon. This was the benefit of knowing what I wanted out of it. I knew that the New York City Marathon the next year was the ultimate goal. So I always knew that it was going to end up being a longer distance than something that I could like sprint through. So the concept of just time on feet was something I researched a lot early on.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, if time on feet is the most important thing here, I can do something where like jog for 30 seconds, walk for 5 minutes. Jog for 30
Mhm.
seconds, walk for 5 minutes. And the first run was a mile and a half that took me 32 minutes. So it was like I would jog for 5 seconds, be winded,
Mhm.
stop, you know, walk for a little
Yeah.
while, jog for another 5 seconds, be winded, stop, walk for a while,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a very like un smooth. There was nothing smooth about it, because you watch runners,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, "Oh, you can just jog forever." This was very
Mhm.
clunky, stop, breathe,
Mhm.
walk, jog, stop, breathe, walk, jog. And so it was very much like, of course I would want to quit doing this. There's nothing fun about that. Being out of
No.
breath, being bent over trying to, just catch any kind of air that you can get sucked down. And then walking isn't running in your head. You're like, I'm just out
Mhm.
here for a walk. And then you're like, well, what I'm doing is actually really good physical exercise, and it's these steps that I can, put together to get to that next big thing, which is
Mhm.
for me was like running 1 mile straight. The first time that I ran like a 12:30 mile straight through, dude, I came home and I was like, babe, you I ran a 12:30, and that was fucking awesome. And I still cheer for people that DM me and they're like, dude, I just ran my first mile all the way through. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
hell yes, you did. And then the next thing you do 2 miles, and then you do three. And I'll never forget the thing, and why I know it was 3 months before I enjoyed running, because it was 3 months later that I was able to do a 4 mile run at a 12:30 pace where I didn't stop, and I got my first runner's high. I was running at
Mhm.
night. It was like one of those beautiful, perfect fall nights in Boston. It was dark. The Citgo sign was lit up. All of the buildings are lit up. And I was 2.5 miles into it where I was like about to turn around. And I just look up and I look around. And I had that moment similar to like the brand deal thing where I'm like, Boston's always been my favorite city. The Red Sox are playing right now. I'm listening to it in my AirPods. And I just started crying while I was running. And I'm like, I
Wow.
get it. I'm living this
Yeah.
dream right now of being in the place that I've always wanted to live, because I've always been a diehard Red Sox fan. And that's the only reason I've always wanted to live here. I'm running and I feel healthy. And 4 miles to me was basically a marathon at the time. I could never imagine going any further than that. And then also, like, look at this night, man. The stars are out, the lights are shining. And so that was my first runner's high. I called Alexis as I was like walking home, and I'm like, "You'll never believe the most amazing thing just happened to me." And I get it. I understand why people do this. And
Yeah.
then that weekend, I went out and I did 5 miles, and 5 miles was my long run for the next, I don't know, 3 months. And then we began marathon training. And, you build mileage after that and you start building
Mhm.
confidence. And it's just crazy, that progression from there.
I think that this is something that everyone needs to hear. Like this part where you're saying about 3 months out. That's how long it
Yeah.
took for you. Like, because I think that a lot of people will stop after, like, maybe they'll give it more than a day, but they will stop when they're like, but I've been running for weeks and there's like it's still hard. It still sucks being out there. And I've been like, like I'm gonna be very honest about that. Like I've been preaching this story where I went from like not training at all for a while because I used to be an athlete, but I had a couple of years off, and then I never ran or anything. But I was asked if I wanted to do a marathon, and I did a marathon. Like in 4 months, I went from no running to like a sub 3 marathon, and and like you saying this now, I'm a bit split because I'm like I think my story is also important because that can prove to a lot of people who are, if they are a bit more natural runners, they might be able to reach a goal that it seems very ambitious. But I also think that if I told this story to some other people, like if I told this story to you when you first started training for your like those 3 months, it probably would just like discourage, like it wouldn't really encourage you to keep on going because you would be like, okay, so in 4 months you did a sub 3 marathon whilst I'm here like struggling to do a mile without stopping. And so I think that your story will be it's so much more important than all of those stories of those of us who are chasing those super fast times because we are like chasing these times, and honestly it's like a selfish goal all the time whilst you are probably giving life, like hearing how running probably changed your life. I just can't imagine how many lives you've changed with that story. I'm like, my story won't change lives, it will only change like the PR of someone's marathon, for instance. So yeah, thank
I
you.
couldn't I know, but here's the thing, I disagree, man. I think that what you did is just as inspirational and I'm sure relatable for plenty of people. So whether it doesn't have to be a marathon though. This is the beauty of it, right? Because your goal was marathon sub 3 4 months, sure. But the
Mhm.
marathon, like I said, 5 miles to me at that time was a freaking
Mm.
marathon. So I
Yeah,
felt the
you did.
same way. And
Good point.
I probably got
Yeah.
the same stoke that out of what I was doing that you did. And I
Hmm.
think that
Yeah.
that brings up just such an important point that I try and talk about as often as possible. We all start from such different places. We all have such different backgrounds, right? So I mentioned I was a college athlete. So I know what it's like to be in a lot of, let's say, physical pain and stress. I lifted a lot of weights in my life. I still had to do running tests in college. I still did lots of cardio. You had been an athlete prior to starting that. So, yes, we have some sort of, base level. There's plenty of people who watch what you and I are doing that have never run. They skipped the mile
Exactly. Yeah.
in high school. They have
Hmm.
no idea what it's like to feel their heart rate get above 160 beats per minute. They think that that is going to be, a heart attack. And my dad's a perfect example of this. He was never an athlete growing up. We go mountain biking together once in a while. Anytime that his heart rate gets above like 160, he freaks out a little bit and just, asks to stop and take a breath. And that's just because he's never experienced that before. He's never worked through what it feels like to operate at that heart rate for so long. And I think that that's such an important piece where it's like when you're watching my content or you're watching your content and you go, "Oh, damn it, I wish, how did he get here so fast? Or how did they get, you know,
Yeah.
from running a 12-minute mile to a 9-minute mile so much quicker?" You have to be like, listen, we all have different starting points here. Just because I did it in, let's say, a marathon in 1 year doesn't mean that it's bad that it took you 2 years or 3
No.
years or
Right.
even 4 years. You
Yeah.
didn't, have 4 a.m. lifts that would then be followed up
Hmm.
by running sprints on the football field at,
Hmm.
for 4 years of college. And that is okay. Like I
Yeah.
had that background and my muscles have the memories of that and they know how to go through that and endure that. So when you're
Yeah.
watching content online, this is my biggest disclaimer ever. Make sure to separate yourself from the person that you'd love to be, right? I love watching
Mm.
people run 250-mile ultra marathons, but I also know that that's something that's going to take me 8, 10 years to be able to get to. And that is very okay. Because, I wasn't a college cross country athlete who could run a 13-minute 5K. I was, I was stoked on my sub 30-minute 5K. And that is okay.
Wow. Yeah. No, this is yeah, I keep repeating myself, but this is important. Yeah. Thank you.
It is. And these are conversations that I think are so great that, we have a microphone in front of us. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I can scream it into the void. I can, word of mouth it around town here. But if we can, share it and give people this opportunity to listen to the conversation like this, whether they're driving down the road, on their run, whatever it is, I do think that it creates a bit more of that like understanding of why people approach running the way that they do or don't approach running because,
Hmm.
it's scary, it's intimidating. There's a bunch of guys out here with, holes in their shirt and shit like that. Like it can be very
Yeah.
intimidating.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Yeah, I agree. I'm very happy we have our microphones on right now.
Yeah.
Um, you did mention, I think it was pretty early in our conversation, that you are also like if not obsessed, but like you're also focusing on your times for whether it's a marathon or your races. Do you have any goals for yourself, like whether it's for the marathon distance or other distances?
Yeah, I have two goals this year. One of them is New York. I'm running New York City again for the first time since my
Hmm.
first time. And I
Cool.
want to take a full hour off of my marathon time at least. So the first time around I ran, it was either a 5:16 or 5:20, something like that. Um I want to go at least I want to do 4:15 or better, which I think is very much in the cards, which is really awesome to,
Wow.
feel
Yeah,
as
that
fit as
is
I do.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one will be an emotional marathon for me because it's just going back to
Hmm.
the place where this kind of all began. New York City will always have such a special place in my heart. And then
Yeah.
I'm following it up a couple weeks later at uh, down in DC with the JFK 50 miler. So it's the oldest 50-mile race in the United States, and it's a flat, fast, not flat, but flat for ultra marathoning, fast 50
Hmm.
mile course, and I really want to post a good time there. I don't have an exact time goal. I don't have an exact, anything. I just want to have a confident, clean 50-mile race. Um,
Hmm.
after I had a 50 miler a few months back at Antelope Canyon that just did not go to plan, and I want
Okay.
redemption at that kind of distance.
Yeah. But what like so totally regardless of things going to plan or not, like being where you were a few years ago and now even talking about doing a 50 miler, like that must be a bit mind blowing to you. Like it is to me. Like I'm like 50 miles, poof. And then here you are, 2 or 3 years after struggling
You
to
know
run,
what's so
and then
funny though,
you're,
man? 50 miles sounds not easier, more enjoyable than doing a hard marathon to me. Like
yeah, yeah.
50
I guess
mile
I can
ultra
get that, but
marathon,
still,
I th- I find a lot of comfort in those times of being kind of alone and just like but taking your time with it, the journey of the race. If I feel like
mm,
I'm rushing through a race or I feel like I'm going too fast, it almost makes it like I'm gonna miss something, When you're out in the desert like I was for Antelope Canyon, I was out there for 18 hours. When you're out there and, 14 of those hours are pretty much by yourself and you're trekking through sand, you work through
mm,
a lot of things. You feel just about
yeah,
every emotion you can possibly feel. And when you go through that, it really makes you find something about life that is so, so special. And that's what I
yeah,
love about kind of distance running is like
hmm,
you're doing this hard thing and you're doing it for a very long time and you get to find out a lot about yourself. And so that was really cool there. However, 18 hours was way too long. And I know unless I'm going 100 miles, I don't want it to ever take that long again.
but I get what you mean, and I'm like, it's almost I'm almost scared by the fact that, just like what you're saying now, it's starting to tempt me like to do these distances. So
Yeah.
I've up until a couple of weeks ago, I was like, no, 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 I'm marathon is enough. Like I love competing like that. And then I watched William Gooch like running
Mhm.
across Australia.
Yep.
Um, and then I realized also like, oh, but he's running slower and like that technique. And I started like kind of imitating him on my runs. Like technically, I was like, just try to do. It's like now I feel like I can run forever. Like I'm not. My
Yeah.
knees can handle it better. Like there was something about, and I don't know what I did. It was just something in my head where I was like visualizing being him running like that. And then my fiance, she was like, "You're not gonna start doing those things, are you?" And it's like, no, But then I'm like,
I'll tell you
I
what.
probably will start doing things like that.
I'll tell you what you need to do. So this is how I made my entrance into the ultra world was there's this great race and I do it every year now. It's the best. It's in December outside of Philadelphia and it's a loop. It's a like 3.8-mile loop and it's called the Frosty Looper and you just go for 8 hours, see
Mhm.
how far you can go. Go try one of those out. Go see how far you
Yeah,
can get in 8 hours.
yeah,
Don't put any number on it. Don't put any pressure. Don't say, the first marathon needs to be sub 3, even sub 4.
hmm,
But just go and
yeah,
do that kind of, I call it forever pace, or I like to say I'm
hmm,
in the pocket, which is like it's a music reference, like when a guitar player is like absolutely like just
hmm,
ripping. They're in the pocket. And there's nothing better than just getting in the pocket. For me, it's like a 10-15 minute, 10-15, 10-30 per mile pace where, your form's a little bit different than it would be if you were running faster, but you're kind of just
Mm-hmm.
shuffling along and you can just carry that. Go, heart rate stays somewhere in the low hundreds and you're just,
Hmm.
cruising all day long. And if it's a looped race and you're not too far, you can stop at any point, you're not
Yeah.
stuck in the
Yeah.
middle of the desert having to kind of
No,
trek your
that's true.
way out. So it gives you that option. And for me it was the perfect introduction. So that was the first time I ever did 50K, 31.2 miles or whatever it is. Um and truly it was like, oh, I really like these like once we get over the marathon distance
Hmm.
cuz the marathon you're focused on 26 point true so hard. When it's something like that you're like, oh, 26 miles whatever, we got to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's where you really
No,
figure
true.
out where you find that comfort. I also knew that I was always built to go forever. I knew it would never be
Yeah.
fast, but like I'm like a steamboat. Like it'll just keep moving no matter what. And so I think that's what also drew my attention to, the ultra thing as opposed to running fast.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely in the cards for me too. But I we'll see if I do. I probably won't do it this year, or maybe. But I have my eyes set on another marathon this fall, and then I have some unfinished business with Boston next year, so I'm hoping
You're
to run
coming
a bit
back to
faster there
town.
than I did this. Yeah, yeah, I have to. I was happy with my race there this year, but I had some higher goals that I really want to just. I want to do a sub 240 in Boston. Like when I do that, then I'm gonna be happy. Then I can start looking at other marathons.
You need the weather to start being on your side. I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
I genuinely believe that the Boston Marathon's going to get harder and harder every single year just with the way that the world and climate and everything is kind of going.
Hmm.
This year was incredibly hot by the end of the race and I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
but and we were lucky this year. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it
I
was
know.
hot, but we were lucky compared to like 2 days
Compared
prior.
to
Then it
2 years.
was much hotter. So yeah,
Yeah.
because I was on
I
a
know.
run. When was it? The Thursday or something before, and then I was like, if it's gonna be this hot on Monday, I'm not. It's not gonna go well. But then luckily it
Yeah.
cooled down a little bit at least.
It cooled down a little bit. It was just the sun. It was a tough day for the sun. UV was like
Yeah,
9, and yeah,
yeah.
you're baking there probably from like Chestnut Hill or so into the rest
Mm,
of the kind of back end of the race there.
yeah. Last thing I want to ask you about is actually Boston, because like now you live in Boston. Is that like a goal for you to because you haven't done Boston, have you?
No, no, I
No.
might never do Boston. um, I
But
think that the
is that
politics of
something on your
Boston,
bucket list of wanting to
uh,
do?
I think running a sub, well, or no, now it would have to be what, sub 250? Is that the new,
Yeah, it's
uh,
it's so it's 2:55, and then they're saying that
or
the cutoff time
255?
might be like 6 to 7 minutes still. So they're looking
Sick.
at like 2:48 maybe.
You know what, man? I mean, never say never, but like,
But I
I
mean like
can't.
with your partnership with Adidas, and I know
Oh,
that it's
oh.
controversial to like talk about, like some people are like, oh, you shouldn't run for a brand and all of that, but I think that if you have the opportunity, go for it, right? Like, but so like if they gave you a spot, would you, is that something that you would be stoked to do?
So I definitely don't shy away from the controversial part of it, because I love to stir the pot a little bit. I've actually turned down the bib for Boston 2 years in a row now, though. Um,
Oh, really?
for two reasons. One, I don't really love the politics of the race. I do
Mhm.
think that there's a lot of growth that from kind of an organizational point they could take. And then secondly, the first year was running London, so that was going to be tough. And then
Yeah.
um the logistic after that first year of kind of being an influencer here for the Boston weekend, I
Mhm.
realized that the logistics of the weekend in terms of having 3 days of events leading up to a marathon
Yeah.
seems like the worst thing to ever do before actually running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with that all being said, and this might be an announcement. I mean, shit, this could break the internet. I think I am running I think I am running Boston next year, and I am doing it in support of a friend who she just needs one more freaking star to get the 6-star medal. And with Boston's
Nice.
cutoff, she's run it. I want to say she's run it 3 times now, maybe 4, maybe 2. I don't know. And she's come in within like 5 minutes of the cutoff to qualify for the star. So it's like right around 6 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
just missing it by that little bit of time each year. So I think that next year I'm going to run it with her. We're going to run it hand in hand, not necessarily physically, but I'll be right by her side to make sure she gets through those tough parts of the race. And we get those
Cool.
5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever she needs off of the time. And we get her that damn 6 star so she can finish up her medal. Because I think I'm 90% sure she's finished every other race and has qualified. So it's just Boston, and I would be more than happy to, you know, do that with her. And then also last year I got to explore the 26-point true scene, which was really, really awesome. It's the unsanctioned race that happens in Southie, and Pioneers puts
Mm-hmm.
it on, and that was so, so, so much fun. And I would love to
Cool.
do that again too. And honestly, at that
When
point,
is
I'll be
that?
ultra training. So it's the Sunday or Saturday. I think it's the Saturday before Marathon Monday.
Oh yeah,
It's
right. The
definitely
one that
Saturday.
Wyatt
Yeah.
Moss did.
Did
Is
Wyatt
that the
do it?
one
No, I
where?
don't think Wyatt did it. Oh
No,
no,
maybe
are
he.
you
No,
thinking of
he
the New
might have
Balance
just. He
indoor
actually.
track?
No, I think Wyatt actually he did the Boston Marathon like the exact course nighttime, like 12 hours
Oh,
before the
you're
start
right.
of the Boston or something. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he did
That
do
was.
that. We also
Yeah.
did that New Balance indoor relay. That was
Okay. Yeah.
insane because I ran the full 26-point true, and then 3 hours later went and ran 2 miles of that relay. So I ran 29 miles on the whole at the end of that day, which was that was hefty.
Wow.
I didn't originally plan on doing that.
I'm so
But yeah,
impressed
I
with
no,
you,
and
dude. Like, it's cool. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I do think I always say this, and I think it's important to note it. I'll never diminish someone's goals of running Boston, or, I think that the BQ is such a great goal and so many people want it,
Mhm.
and I think that's super rad. It's just not the thing for me. It doesn't really fire me up. If it happened one day,
Yeah.
that'd be really, really sick, but for me, like Cocodona, that like finishing a 250-mile race, that is like okay, that's the thing I want to chase, as opposed to
Yeah.
maybe, the sub 250 marathon, which I can't even run 1 mile at that pace, let alone 26.2 right now.
But honestly though, like, and I don't know if that's like a comfort or like if it is inspirational, motivational, whatever at all. But when I started training for my marathon, so I did a 252 at my first one, and so the average pace that I had throughout that whole race, I couldn't even do for 1 kilometer 4 months prior to the marathon. So I think that's like
That is,
one of the things that I think is cool about running. And I know that I had a different like coming from sports and having had a high VO2 max and all of that. But I think that
it,
we should not be discouraged by the fact that we can't keep a certain pace. Like my long term goal now is to do a 225 marathon. And like that pace right now is like if I went super hard for a kilometer, I would probably be able to hit that pace for a kilometer, yes. But even starting to think about doing that for a marathon, like even a 10K, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. So it's like, but I can't let those thoughts in. I have to be like, yeah, maybe one day. Like I have improved so much from where I was to here, and so why not from here to over there where my goal is, and so and that's why I'm also like I was sitting here thinking about it when we were talking, and I brought up like the Adidas giving you a spot that I was like at the same time as I was saying it, I was like, but he might be able to qualify, You know, like it's you from where you were to where you are today. It's such a huge difference, and I honestly think it's a shorter way from where you are now to a sub to 55 than from where you were to where you are today. I don't know if you agree, but
Yeah,
by the
no,
sounds of it, I
you're
would
right.
say so.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I definitely I sometimes don't give myself enough credit with how far I've kind of come from. Like
Hmm.
the other night we did 8 miles at a 9 minute per mile flat rate, and that was like my easier run. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like that's freaking insane. I never would have thought
Hmm.
that this would be like, my conversational pace for an 8 mile
Hmm.
run on a Tuesday night. Um, so yeah, never say never. It's just I think that the thing that would come out of that is just like the specific training that would have to go into that might not excite me as much as like I would
Yeah,
rather go run 15
that's
miles
fair.
every night at a 11-minute pace. Um, but at the same time, dude, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be running marathons, I'd call you crazy. So
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I could get really into wanting to get fast next year and,
Yeah.
start dropping the hammer a little bit. I am the most unpredictable person you'll meet online. So it's like,
I love that.
sure, that could be in the cards. Maybe I'll be a freaking Iron Man training. I don't know.
Mhm.
Like it's whatever kind of the brings whatever tide feels right for that season.
I feel like someone should make a documentary about you and your journey. That's it would
Oh,
be a
I
good
don't
one.
know if we're there yet. Because there's not I
Huh.
do think that there's, like I
That's the
think
thing.
it's
That's where I disagree. It's not about there yet. It's where you already have been, like where you were to where you are now. That would have been a great documentary. You do if you stop running tomorrow, it would have been a great documentary up until today. That's like,
yeah,
yeah. I
thank
mean,
you.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Love a
yeah.
quote of yours on that. It's what was it? It's never been about running. It's always been about the people. I saw something that you
Yeah,
wrote
that's
somewhere,
yeah, that's so true.
and
And that's
that's
the
what
most
this
important
is
part of it.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would want it to be I wouldn't want it to be about me. I'd want it to be about the people I've met along the way and the kind of stories I've gotten to hear and tell and share and everything in between. Like the best part about the 26 true marathon wasn't running 26.2 miles. It was the fact that I only had planned on running a half marathon, but at mile 6, the sweetest lady in the world, Vivian, told me that she liked my tattoos and asked if I would pace her for the rest of the marathon for her first marathon. Dude, at that
Oh,
point,
that's
it was
great.
immediately like, today's couldn't me, I am the least important part of today. We're gonna get Vivian across the finish line and, have a blast. And now,
Mm.
we're friends, and it was just like, this is why running is special. How often,
Yeah, it
do
is.
you get to meet a stranger just running 26.2 and then, leave 20 miles later after sharing such a great time, the highs and the lows of
Hmm.
a marathon, you know, do it together.
Yeah, it's unique. I feel like I think this conversation has been a proof of that too. Like we've been talking for more than an hour and a half, and I feel like we probably could have kept going if we wanted to. And it's funny because I'd never talked to you before this conversation. Now I feel like I know you. Like I really appreciate you, and just you know, I sometimes leave these episodes feeling like, oh, I got a new friend today. And I think that is
Yeah,
obviously says something about you, but it also says something about this community that we're a part of. So just want to say
without
thank
a
you
doubt.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think I have a buddy who makes fun of me, and I just said it. He's like, everyone you meet, you just start calling him your buddy immediately. And I'm like, yeah, because like we just talked for an hour and a half. We're buddies now. Like, and
Yeah.
everyone that we get to run with, those are my buddies. Like, those are the people that we do the similar things. We chat, we have a good time, we smile together. I
Hmm.
think in a time where there's so much instability, having buddies surrounding you and having friends is all we need and all we're looking
Yeah.
for sometimes. So yeah, make friends with everybody that you meet, and give
Hmm.
everybody that time of day to tell their story, pump their tires a bit, whatever it takes.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Hey Herm, I really appreciate this. This gave me a lot. It's now almost 11 p.m. here, but this definitely just made my
That's
day.
right.
I'm gonna go to bed and just with a smile on my face, I think, after this conversation. And yeah, I hope a lot of people will listen to this because this is definitely a very important one.
Totally agree. Hey, yeah, go get that rest, man, and we'll be in touch.
I guess you now understand what I meant about this conversation being very important and how this conversation gave me a lot. I was kind of left speechless, to be honest. And there were times during this episode where I was like, "Oh, Christian, you need to talk," because I was left a little bit like, yeah, um, with a lot of feelings, thoughts, and honestly, just such a great conversation and an important one. So I hope that a lot of people will listen to this, and that's where I need your help. I need you to share this podcast with a friend, share it with someone who needs to hear this, who will benefit from hearing it, or who will just maybe get a better day by listening to it. Because this conversation with Herm, I think it will make a lot of people's days better. Don't you think? Well, that was it for this week's or this episode. I think that it was a pretty long one, but I think it was worth it. And again, if you liked what you heard, give this podcast a review, follow it, subscribe, and have a good day. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.